Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to speak about Mars. There's a lot of Mars energy right now. Mars in Aries, just past Chiron. It's going to move to square Pluto, first Jupiter, Pluto and Saturn. And it's going to be in this whole energy field of these squares and this Aries energy for several months. So we've really just been initiated into a larger Martian unfolding within consciousness, and thus I want to devote this video to speak about what is Mars energy about, to really anchor in when there's strong Mars activity happening. What's the opportunity here? What's it all about? How can we understand the energy of Mars within ourselves more consciously? So the first thing that I want to say is Mars at first operates on a purely instinctual level. And before there's self-awareness, before there's consciousness, before there's self-reflection, the impulse within Mars is to act instinctively on whatever arises in the present moment. I want to do this, I do it. I want to say this, I say it. I feel something, I act on it. And the most subtle and unrefined, most gross and subtle, non-subtle and unrefined level of consciousness, there's no self-awareness and thus no awareness of consequence or how my actions are affecting others. And what happens with the Mars energy is we act, we do, and we experience consequence. And that consequence can run the gamut from, ow, that hurt, or ow, that hurt you. Oh, that doesn't feel good when I act that way, or I just started a fire. We learn simply that every action creates a reaction in the world, and this establishes karma. What's interesting about Mars is we act because we're in the world. I gotta plug in my computer. We have this perception that the world provides for us something that we need. There we go. This perception of the world emanates from desire. Desire is sort of the bottom line for everything that we encounter in this world. Desire says, what do we want? What are we looking for? And if our desires are directed out there for external fulfillment, we come into this life setting the stage to experience that. And so our perceptions of the world follow our desires. We're going to thus perceive a world relative to what it is that we're wanting to fulfill and uncover within ourselves through worldly experience. So if we're desiring to affirm, I'm going to be stronger than everyone else, then we're going to see the world as a competition. And how people talk to us and relate to us is going to be understood as, ooh, are they better than me, or are they trying to up-one me? No perception is objective. No perception is actually accurate, and thus no memory is accurate either. So what happens with Mars is we're going to be acting and living out according to what we think is important to us. And what we learn is without growing and being able to really engage and become self-aware, our actions become defensive for their own purpose. It's like protecting our freedom for its own sake. Within Mars, we need freedom, because freedom basically says, in order to fulfill my desires, in order to do the work that I believe I need to do, which, by the way, is also what evolution is, meaning if we have a path to walk, if our consciousness is oriented in a certain way, we have to play that out. And we're going to learn from it and grow from it, and then we'll move on. But we need to feel that we have the freedom to act, to respond, to engage, and make choices in this world. So if it's just about that, then it's just like freedom for its own sake. And we'll find ourselves fighting and resisting anything that we see imposes upon ourselves. But if we're developing self-awareness, then we'll really ask ourselves, well, what is it that I want? What do I really desire? What am I really seeking in this world? And then we become more aware that how we act, how we behave, the way that we engage and put our energy out there in the world is going to invite a very particular kind of feedback and response. And we have to really be honest with ourselves. Like, is this working? Is this what I want? Is this where I'm trying to go? Like, okay, I won the argument, or I won the fight, or I'm right, or I'm stronger. Now what? So the ultimate function of Mars is really a self-cleaning oven. Because you act, you have karma, you create consequence, creates a feedback of experience. But ultimately, this serves to potentially exhaust the need to fulfill ourselves in the way that we've needed to. Right? If we're identified with being right, with being seen, identified with being respected, with being loved, then your beloved will say something to you. And if they didn't say it in the right way, you'll get defensive. What do we have? Defense against defense. Byron Katie says defense is the first act of war. And so we can live in a perpetual state of defense until we think, okay, well, what do I really want to cultivate here? Do I really need it to be about, I need to be seen, I need to be recognized, I need to be fill in the blank? Or I can't be taken advantage of, or I can't. All these things that basically place us in some sort of adversity and fight with others or with reality. What if your desire becomes peace, love, serving truth, serving unity? What happens is the Mars energy doesn't become like a placated, I'm just going to do nothing and not respond. We learn how to direct it in more wise ways. We learn how to become that peaceful warrior. We learn how to use our impulses, our energy, that need for freedom to act, to engage in the world as we need to, but according to a more elevated principle. And so this might mean not reacting, seeing the stimulus, even someone saying something hurtful to you, but maybe choosing to listen. Or just waiting, like, okay, I feel hurt. It's actually a choice to pick up the defense. I mean, I'm saying these words, but trust me, these are the cutting edge realizations on my own journey. What do we believe needs to be defended? And we're all going to answer that question in our own way. We're all going to say, oh no, I have to say no to this. This is absolutely unacceptable. And if it is unacceptable for you, then it is unacceptable for you. But just be mindful of what kind of life you're living. Because this can easily become a life of saying unacceptable. No, and we think we're creating freedom, but before we know it, we're living for the next 50, 60, 70 years in this defensive place. We have to ask ourselves the question, where does real peace come from? What does it look like when I'm finally not fighting for my freedom, fighting for my rights, fighting for my dignity? Anger and outrage are all part of it, right? We experience it, but the maturation within the Mars Aries energy is, what am I going to do about it? And the teaching is, the energy with which we say, the energy with which we act, is the energy that we're expressing out in the world. It's what we're actually saying. It doesn't matter, how noble we think we're being. If we carry the energy of anger, of hurt, of frustration, of judgment, that's what's being conveyed. And then that's what life will reflect. Judge not lest you be judged. Hurt not lest you be hurt. What does that mean? In the moment of judging, in the moment of fighting, you are fought, you are judged. Our system doesn't know it's meant to be for someone else. It doesn't know that the attack is meant to go external. There's no external. That's why Mars is a self-cleaning oven, because the whole notion of external action and working with the world out there is an illusion. We do it because we're playing out our own investment in the world, where our desires are linked outside of self. And so we literally create the world, thinking that there's something out there to fulfill ourselves. We're all doing that, right? But to become free and to really take our freedom seriously is to recognize the more we act with conviction that what we're solving is out there, and that we're using force and aggression and anger and violence and accusation to do it, we're tricking ourselves. Because the oneness doesn't know that there's two. And so we hurt ourselves. There's no such thing as hurting another and not hurting ourselves. And that's why as we become self-aware, we realize, wow, I'm just playing out this story in this holographic world that I've created in my mind, right? Like I've created a scenario where I need to fight for my freedom, or I need to fight for someone else's freedom. But we see that it actually gets us nowhere. Where is peace? Where is true peace? And to really become reflective on that. Where is the possibility for true peace inside of me? And it just is a matter of rewiring our relationship to that Mars instinctual impulse. To have a relationship with what we're experiencing, with what's arising in us. And to realize we're all just like adolescents. What does an adolescent do if it's untrained, undeveloped in their mind? It'll be instinctive, it'll react. And then we all need to be taught, we all need to be learned, we all need to slow down. What's the challenge with Mars is following instructions, slowing down, taking advice, getting feedback. Because it's not really about, Mars isn't about following the rules or doing what other people want. But there can be such a strong sense of furor and immediacy that says, I need to act right now. I need to act on this desire, on this impulse. I've been speaking about defense, but of course, Mars is violative, right? It says, I want this, or I want you, or I'm going to take this. And what's interesting is no matter what it is, whether it's offense or defense or taking or protecting, there's an immediacy to the feeling of it, right? You're with that person. You just got to say that thing. And it's like, I know it feels like you really got to say it, but what if you didn't? But where does that energy go, right? If you're feeling the strong impulse, where does that energy go? And this is where we are all training ourselves. Mars, as refined energy, basically reflects our life force. In the evolutionary astrology teachings, Jeff Green has taught beautifully that Mars, as a lower octave of Pluto, reflects the choices that we make that reflect our underlying desires, meaning the world that we're playing out, the choices we're making, the world we're interfacing with, and that which we're engaging with ultimately reflects, why did we come here? What is it we're seeking in the first place? And so we're going to be directing our desire energy out into the world. And it's going to basically keep our kundalini at a certain level of awakening. Our consciousness will stay dormant at a certain level and create a whole world at that level, interfacing with challenges, relationships, experiences at that level. We stay at that level by staying in reaction, by keeping our desires fixated on the things of that level. And at every level, there is a culture and a paradigm to validate and say, yes. Wherever you want to create your reality is literally where you're going to find all the validation and an encouragement to create that reality. But when we choose to evolve, it means stepping apart, stepping aside from everything that has kept us from believing that this is where we need to be. Which means really choosing to walk it alone. Mars is solo. And there's a courage that's required for each one of us on this evolutionary journey to walk alone, to follow our own path and make our own choices. What it means is we're transmuting this unrefined energy. And instead of using it up here and playing out this level of hologram, this facade of reality, we see what's there. What if I get to know this energy and I direct it inward? Become self-aware and learn how to use energy, make choices, direct my will out in more constructive ways. In ways that actually creates true freedom for awakening and actually creates peace. Actually, and this sometimes might be very harsh or aggressive. This is not about looking peaceful. The path can look all kinds of ways. What I'm learning as we evolve, the idea of needing to choose and do something itself dissolves. Right? The more we see the world as a place where we need to struggle, the more of a chooser there will be, the more of a person and a need to figure out the right way. But as we develop in our faith and our understanding that everything is provided and that we are where we need to be and there aren't outer problems to solve, that there are never actual outer problems to solve, there's a certain stillness that we learn, that we develop along the path. Where it becomes more of a noticing of what wants to happen and choices become more spontaneous. And that's the self-cleaning oven function. We act and then we exhaust the need to act. And we can settle and rest more fully into the center. So these are things that I'm learning right now. With Mars so active and just really volatile, of course, the triggers and the reactivity can be strong. And the work for us is to really know, what are we fighting for? Or to say it differently, what's our mission? What do we want to do? What's important to us, right? Everyone's fighting for something. Everyone's defending something, and it's implied by their actions. Our actions, our words, our choices tell us what we're standing for. And this is for us to determine right now, especially as Mars moves through Aries and comes to scroll the Capricorn. It really, really asks us to know, what are your ethics? What is the world you want to create? What's important to you? And stand by that. It may or may not be popular. And we're all in different places, so we're all going to act. We're going to do the thing and say the thing. We can't avoid it. You can't make yourself not where you are. And then that's suppression. And then that creates all kinds of issues. If you got to act, you got to act. If you got to say, you got to say. If you got to do, you got to do. But then you got to look at it. See how that goes. It's one of those things, like, we're always at the edge on our journey of, like, that edge between, I have to do this thing, and do I really have to do this thing, right? And we can't make ourselves more aware than we are, right? And so there's a part of the randomness to Mars of stirring shit up, making all the energy go, and seeing what happens when the dust settles. And Mars in Aries squares Capricorn. Capricorn is time, maturity, patience. So there's a lot to learn right now, and we're just getting started in all of this. So I'll share some more with you all later.